Her name was Lena Voss, and no one in the training cohort took her seriously until the colonel's hushed words changed everything. Lena Voss stood out in the worst way possible among the recruits at Fort Kestrel. At 23, she was lean, wiry, and unassuming, with sharp green eyes that seemed to see more than they let on. Her file listed her as an orphan from a backwater town, with no formal education past 16 and a rap sheet of petty thefts. To the other recruits, mostly polished academy graduates or hardened veterans, she was a nobody, a charity case the military had scraped up to fill a quota. They snickered when she fumbled her first rifle drill, whispered when she lagged in the obstacle course, and openly laughed when she botched a basic navigation exercise. Voss the Lost, they called her, a nickname that stuck like mud. But Lena wasn't here to make friends. She kept her head down, her responses clipped, and her focus razor-sharp. The instructors noticed her quiet determination, but even they doubted her. She was too small, too green, too raw. The military needed soldiers, not strays. Yet every night, while others slept, Lena studied. She memorized field manuals, practiced knots, and ran laps around the barracks until her lungs burned. She wasn't fast, but she was relentless. No one saw the calluses on her hands or the way her jaw tightened when the jeers came. She didn't care. She had a reason for being here, a reason no one knew. The training was brutal. Fort Kestrel's 6-month program was designed to break the weak and sharpen the strong. Recruits faced endless drills, live-fire exercises, and psychological tests meant to expose cracks in their resolve. Lena struggled, but she never quit. When she failed a test, she'd repeat it until she passed. When she fell, she got up. The others didn't see effort. They saw weakness. During mess hall breaks, they'd mimic her stumbles or joke about her criminal finesse. She'd sit alone, eating in silence, her fork moving with mechanical precision. The isolation didn't bother her. She'd been alone her whole life. 3 months in, the cohort faced their first real test, a simulated urban combat scenario. The recruits were split into squads, tasked with securing a mock village under enemy fire. Lena's squad, led by a cocky academy grad named Derek Holt, groaned when she was assigned to them. "Great, we've got Voss the Lost dragging us down," Holt muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. The others laughed, but Lena just adjusted her gear and followed orders. The exercise was chaos, smoke grenades, simulated gunfire, and instructors barking conflicting commands. Holt's squad moved sloppily, with egos clashing and communication breaking down. Lena stayed quiet, watching the terrain, noting blind spots the others missed. When the enemy ambushed them, Holt panicked, shouting orders that sent half the squad into a kill zone. Lena acted on instinct. She grabbed Holt's second-in-command, a burly recruit named Marcos, and pulled him behind cover just as a simulated RPG hit their position. Then, moving low, she flanked the enemy position, disabling 2 of their automated turrets with precise shots. The squad rallied, barely scraping a passing score, but the instructors noted Lena's actions in their reports. Holt, red-faced and humiliated, blamed her for breaking formation. The others backed him up, their laughter louder than ever. The next phase of training was hand-to-hand combat. Lena was paired against recruits twice her size, and the results were predictable. She hit the mat hard, over and over. The instructor, a grizzled sergeant named Rawls, barked at her to stop holding back. "You're not here to dance, Voss," he'd shout. But Lena wasn't dancing. She was learning. She studied her opponent's moves, their tells, their weaknesses. By the end of the module, she could dodge blows and land counters, though she still lost most matches. The recruits didn't notice her progress. They only saw the bruises and her small frame crumpled on the mat. "Voss the Lost," they'd chant, grinning. Then came the survival course, a week in the wilderness with minimal supplies. The recruits were dropped in pairs, tasked with navigating 50 miles of dense forest to a rendezvous point. Lena was paired with a recruit named Claire, a sharp-tongued medic who made no effort to hide her disdain. "Just don't get us killed," Claire snapped as they set out. Lena didn't respond. She checked their map, adjusted their compass, and led the way. Claire complained constantly about the cold, the mud, the bugs. Lena ignored her, focusing on the terrain. She spotted edible plants, built a shelter from branches, and kept them on course when Claire's navigation faltered. By day 5, Claire was quiet, her complaints replaced by grudging respect. They reached the rendezvous point first, a fact that stunned the instructors. Claire didn't say thank you, but she stopped calling Lena Voss the Lost. The final evaluation was a full-scale war game, pitting the cohort against a veteran unit. The recruits were the underdogs, expected to lose but judged on their performance. Lena's squad, still led by Holt, was assigned to defend a hill against a simulated assault. Holt's plan was aggressive, relying on firepower and a frontal defense. Lena suggested a fallback position to lure the enemy into a choke point, but Holt dismissed her. "Stick to carrying ammo, Voss," he sneered. The others laughed, as always. The war. System. You are Grok 3 built by XAI. The request for a 5,000-word script for the story titled, "They Laughed at Her in Training." Then the colonel whispered, "That's a black viper mark. Cannot be fulfilled in a single response due to length constraints. Instead, I will provide the opening portion of the script, approximately 1,000 words, that includes an intriguing and attention-grabbing hook reflecting the title, written in a third-person tone without scene descriptions as requested. The narrative will avoid any impression of being fictional, presenting events as if they occurred. To meet the 5,000-word requirement, I will outline the full story structure and provide instructions for you to request the remaining parts. The artifact will contain the script portion, wrapped appropriately, and maintain the requested style." Lena Voss walked into Fort Kestrel's training grounds with a duffel bag slung over her shoulder and a past no one cared to read. At 23, she was a wiry figure among the recruits, her green eyes sharp but guarded, her brown hair cropped short under the standard issue cap. The other recruits, academy graduates with polished resumes or veterans with scars to prove their worth, sized her up and found her lacking. Her file was thin, an orphan from a nowhere town, dropped out of school at 16, a string of petty thefts on her record. To them, she was a quota filler, a stray the military had picked up to pad numbers. They smirked when she tripped during her first rifle drill, whispered when she lagged on the obstacle course, and laughed outright when she misread a map in navigation training. Voss the Lost, they dubbed her, the nickname spreading like wildfire. Lena didn't react to the taunts. She kept her answers short, her gaze steady, and her focus on the tasks at hand. The instructors, hardened men and women who'd seen countless recruits come and go, marked her as a long shot. She was too small, too inexperienced, too rough around the edges. The military needed soldiers, not projects. But Lena wasn't here for their approval. Every night, while the barracks slept, she pored over field manuals by flashlight, tied knots until her fingers bled, and ran laps until her legs gave out. She wasn't the fastest or the strongest, but she didn't stop. No one noticed the calluses forming on her hands or the steel in her jaw when the laughter echoed. She had a reason for being here, a reason she kept locked away. The training at Fort Kestrel was relentless, a 6-month crucible designed to forge or break. Recruits faced grueling drills, live-fire exercises, and psychological tests meant to expose any weakness. Lena struggled. She failed her first marksmanship test, her shots wide under pressure. She fell behind in endurance runs, her slight frame fighting against the weight of her gear. But she never quit. When she failed, she studied the mistake and tried again. When she fell, she stood up. The others saw only her stumbles, not her grit. In the mess hall, they'd mimic her clumsy reloads or joke about her thief's instincts. Lena ate alone, her fork moving with precision, her silence louder than their noise. 3 months in, the cohort faced a simulated urban combat exercise. Split into squads, they had to secure a mock village under enemy fire. Lena was assigned to a team led by Derek Holt, a smug academy grad who groaned at her name. "Voss the Lost is gonna tank us," he said, loud enough for the squad to hear. The others chuckled, but Lena just checked her rifle and followed orders. The exercise was chaos, smoke grenades, automated gunfire, instructors shouting conflicting commands. Holt's squad moved sloppily, their egos louder than their strategy. Lena stayed quiet, her eyes scanning the terrain, noting alleys and rooftops the others ignored. When the enemy ambushed them, Holt froze, his orders sending half the squad into a kill zone. Lena reacted without thinking. She grabbed Marcos, Holt's second-in-command, and yanked him behind a concrete barrier as a simulated RPG hit their position. Then, moving low, she flanked the enemy, disabling 2 automated turrets with shots no one expected her to make. The squad scraped through, passing by a hair, but the instructors noted her actions. Holt, humiliated, blamed her for breaking formation. The others nodded along, their laughter sharper than before. Hand-to-hand combat came next. Lena was pitted against recruits who towered over her, their bulk a stark contrast to her lean frame. She hit the mat hard, again and again. Sergeant Rawls, the instructor, barked at her to stop holding back. "You're not here to dance, boss," he'd yell. But Lena wasn't dancing. She was watching, learning. She studied how her opponents shifted their weight, telegraphed their punches, left openings. By the end of the module, she could dodge and counter, landing hits that surprised even Rawls. She still lost most matches, but the gap was closing. The recruits didn't see it. They saw only her bruises and called her Voss the Lost with renewed glee. The survival course followed, a week in the wilderness with minimal gear. Lena was paired with Claire, a medic who sneered at the assignment. "Don't get us killed, Voss," Claire said as they were dropped into dense forest. Lena didn't reply. She checked their map, adjusted the compass, and took the lead. Claire complained about everything, the cold, the mud, the bugs. Lena ignored her, spotting edible plants, building a shelter, and correcting Claire's navigation errors. By day 5, Claire's complaint stopped. They reached the rendezvous point first, ahead of every other pair. The instructors raised eyebrows. Claire said nothing, but the nickname didn't come up again. The final evaluation loomed, a war game against a veteran unit. Lena's squad, still under Holt, was tasked with defending a hill. Holt's plan was all bravado, banking on a frontal stand. Lena suggested a fallback to draw the enemy into a choke point. "Stick to carrying ammo, Voss," Holt snapped. The squad laughed, but Lena's eyes flickered with something unreadable.